I am surrounded by books. Pile of books here, pile there, my TBR cart. This is the dream life. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ellie if you've never been here before, and on this channel I upload whatever I want, and today is going to be my February Wrapped and my March TBR. I wanted to film this a little bit earlier today, but I was so close to finishing my last book of February. So I just finished the audiobook like not even an hour ago, and here I am filming this video for you. I've only filmed one of these before. I filmed one for my January wrap up and my February TBR, but I'm really excited to film another one. I think they're just so fun. Talking about books is just so fun. Okay, let's talk about the books that I did end up reading in February. As we go through each one, I will talk about if they were on my February TBR to begin with, or if they weren't and I ended up reading them. And then I will also talk about the books that I put on my February TBR that I didn't end up getting to. The first book I want to talk about has been a long time coming because I started this mid-January and I didn't finish it until the first couple of days in February. But it is finally time to include this book in a wrap-up. So because I finished it in February, I'm counting it as a book read in February. This is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. If you want to know like a full in-depth rating and review video style, I did give one in my Tackling the TBR episode that I read this in. But I also kind of did a just written out version on my Goodreads. So if you follow me on Goodreads, you can read that as well. But to make a very long story short, I do feel like it was good that I actually ended up reading this. One, it is now off of my shelves and it's on my unhaul shelf, which is up there. It's listed on my Pango books, but I might just put it in a little free library just to begin with. I feel like someone out there will enjoy this more than I did. I think it was a story that is worth writing, and there's a reason why it's loved by many people. It just didn't work for me, and I just felt that the execution just was not there. This book is very, very character based, and I felt like because of that, you get to know the characters really well. However, the plot really lacked, and I feel like so much was happening but also nothing at the same time. I feel like there was no climax to the story, and so because of how big this book is, it's hard to just push through and finish, and you never want to feel like you're just pushing through something to finish. So in the end, I did rate The Book Thief 3 stars, which is honestly on the higher end of 3 stars, but it wasn't bad. It just wasn't what I had hoped it would be. The next book that I read in February was Violets Are Blue by James Patterson. This is also pulled because of my Tackling the TBR series. I didn't even write a review on Goodreads for this because I just feel like it wasn't worth it. But again, because it was a Tackling the TBR book, I do go into my thoughts in quite a bit of detail in that video. So if you're curious, go ahead and go there. But I rated this 2 stars. I'm ready to just get James Patterson books off of my shelf, if I'm being honest. It's just not my vibe in books. I would like to say anymore, but I don't know if his books were ever my vibe. This one just, I mean, it's a page turner, but honestly, I think it says a lot about it. I don't remember a lot other than the bad things, which I just remember there being too much background detail, and I don't know. It's forgettable. The third book that I read in February was Rock, Paper, Scissors. It was actually a audiobook listen for me and my husband, which was a fun experience. It was cool to just like have a story that we can both talk about to each other and to have something to share. This one was a disappointment, to be honest. I had heard a lot of good things about Rock, Paper, Scissors, especially comparing it to Never Lie by Frida McFadden, which if you watched my January wrap up, then you know that I actually really enjoyed Never Lie. And the whole reason why I picked up Rock, Paper, Scissors was because of that book. I ended up rating Rock, Paper, Scissors 2 stars, more like a 2.5 rounded down from 3 stars. The first 75% of that book was so boring and a little bit hard to get into. I just feel like for a thriller, it wasn't thrilling at all until the 75% point. And then all of these twists started coming in. I also really, at the beginning, I did not like the way that the book was set up with all of the letters. And I understand, I mean, I don't know if this is a spoiler. I'm trying to talk about these books with the least amount of spoilers as possible. The letters aspect of the book is such a huge part of all of the pieces coming together. And I understand that after having read the book, but in the moment, I just felt like it was being used to tell us everything. And I'm more of a reader who enjoys when we are shown things. So when we're just told things, it's just boring and I'm not engaged in the story. I'm glad that I ended up reading it. Even when a book is a little bit disappointing, I'm always glad when I read it, especially when it's something that has been on my shelves for a long time or I had just heard a lot of things about. I know other people enjoy that book a lot more than me and I'm happy for them. But for me personally, Rock, Paper, Scissors is just one that I feel like if you haven't read it, you can miss. It's also super long for a thriller. The next book that I read in February is possibly my most exciting one and definitely my favorite book of February. And that was Fourth Wing. I did a full spoiler review with all of my reactions in a vlog. Please, please, please only watch it if you have read it because it is full of spoilers. I loved Fourth Wing. I feel like this was my fantasy awakening. I ended up buying the whole series that is out. I know it's a 5-book series and we only have 3 right now. I ended up buying Iron Flame and Onyx Storm and you will see those soon. This was just so good. It was a 5-star read for me. It was a 5-star read. Because I did a full video on this, I won't go into too much detail, but I will say the things that I really enjoyed about this. I loved the academic setting. I loved the one-liners, the dragons, the found family, the friendships formed. Like, it's just a book that you don't have to take seriously, and it just felt so good to read it. Like, it was such a fun time. I couldn't put it down. Like, this book came everywhere with me. It was so good, and I'm just so happy that I've been introduced to the world, and I'm so excited to see where the rest of the series goes. The next book that I read in February was Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This is obviously a new release. It came out this month, and I'm just so shocked that I got my hands on it in the first place. I mentioned this in my TBR video, but the whole reason why I wanted to read Deep End was because it was about a swimmer. At least one swimmer. At first I thought it was 2 swimmers, but it was a swimmer and a diver. That's the only reason why I wanted to read it, to be honest. I had never read Ali Hazelwood before. I looked up the audiobook and the ebook on Libby, and they both were like showing, oh, your library doesn't have this. Click the bell to be notified when they get it. And so I clicked that, and literally that same day, I got a notification that both of them were available to borrow. I borrowed the ebook and I actually read it on my like 2012 Kindle Fire, which is crazy, but I feel like that enhanced the experience so much more just because I don't own a Kindle, like a newer Kindle. I do have that old Kindle Fire, which surprisingly the battery lasts pretty long on that, but I'm hoping to maybe invest in a Kindle. I don't know. It's been an idea that I've had for the past couple of weeks, I would say. I had always like sworn off Kindles, but now I feel like, I don't know, they're just so convenient. I think especially with the job that I have, to just put it in my bag and bring it with me to work. But anyways, I borrowed the ebook and I devoured Deep End. I said this in my Goodreads review, so I don't want to like say too much, but I rated that book spice aside. I will say Deep End, if that is your thing, Deep End, I've heard, again, I haven't read any other Ali Hazelwood book, but I've heard that Deep End is her spiciest book yet. If you are trying to avoid spice, then you, by all means, you need to avoid Deep End. Spice aside, let me just say, character-wise, Lucas and Scarlett, their relationship And the way that Lucas, again, I also don't want to get into spoilers, but the way that Lucas protects and cares for Scarlet is something that I just have not seen in books. And I also, without trauma dumping, felt so connected to Scarlet. And I felt like I was reading about myself on the page. And maybe that's a little too vulnerable for me to say, because I feel like if you have read Deep End, then you're like, whoa, are you okay? I ended up rating Deep End to 4 stars. There were a couple things that came up a lot that a lot of people didn't like, but I think if you're someone who really struggles with anxiety and what people might think about you, or you just can't shut your brain off ever, and especially if you relate to those things, but also you have had some form or forms of like childhood trauma, I feel like you will really resonate with Scarlet. I do think that's a book that you really need to go into knowing about those two things: the amount of spice that is in that book and the main character's really prevalent anxiety and what triggers that. I feel like you do need to know those two things going into it. I almost DNF'd it to begin with for just a multitude of reasons, but I will say, based off of the characters alone, I want to read more characters like Lucas and Scarlet. Lucas is like a male character that I have never read before, and maybe I'm just missing out on a ton of books and you guys are like, I don't know, recommend some actually. If you've read Deep End and you've read other books that have male main characters like Lucas, please comment them below, please, because I just loved how he came to Scarlet's side without her even asking, and he did what she needed without her even making it known. And I couldn't rate the book any lower based off of that fact. The next book I read in February was Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barrs. This is the second book in the Natural series. I'm actually reading this as a part of my Tackling the TBR series, which you guys will see in my next video. So this is kind of a spoiler for that video a little bit, but I ended up rating this book 4.5 stars. I just love the Natural series. I love the Naturals world. I can't wait to get into the third book, All In, and just see where the story takes us. Literally the only reason why I didn't rate this a 5-star was because there's like a really slight, if you haven't read the Naturals at all, you might go into this thinking it's a spoiler. I don't think it's a spoiler, but there's a slight little subplot of romance that begins in the first one, and I feel like in the second one, Killer Instinct, it just felt rushed and out of place. Like it was just kind of thrown in like, oh yeah, we introduced this in the first one, we kind of need to carry it through the second one. And the way that it was just kind of like, I mean, it was sprinkled throughout the book, like it was referenced to, I guess I will say, but actual like romance was kind of thrown in at the end, and it just wasn't at the right spot. Like what the characters were going through at the time, it didn't make sense for the romance. Like it didn't feel realistic. Not that this book is realistic, but realistic for the setting and the characters. It just didn't feel like the right thing. So that is the only reason why I knocked down like 0.5 star. The last book I read in February was How to End a Love Story by Eileen Kwong. Out of all of these books, this is the only book that I didn't know was going to be on my TBR at the time of making my TBR. This was read for my friend Anna's book club. We chose to read this for February, and I just finished this about an hour ago. I listened to the audiobook for about 90% of this, and then like the last 10%, I would say maybe even more, like 15-20%, I read it while listening to the audiobook. So I did a little bit of an immersive reading moment, but I ended up rating this 3.5 stars. Actually, you know what? I read a review by someone that I follow on Goodreads and just in general, like on social media, and I felt like I really resonated with her review. So I want to just kind of like read some things from that. I'll just literally read it verbatim, honestly. She said, 3.5 stars because I've rated books 3 before that were worse. No, actually, because this book kept feeling like it was almost a 4-star read for me, but never quite made it there. I feel like I can always tell when I'm about to have a 5-star read, and this book sadly never gave me that feeling. 2 people who were never supposed to fall in love fell in love, and it was awkward at times, pulled at my heartstrings at times, but overall felt like it was missing something. I strongly believed that's because this was written in 3rd person. Me too. It truly felt like it lacked that human feel even during scenes that you'd expect it from. I did like the story and I did enjoy the read. However, I don't see why it is quite as popular as it was. There were plenty of moments that felt very real and were written very honestly, but overall not the best character arcs and didn't feel super special to me. And I couldn't agree more. Especially on the fact that this being written in 3rd person, I feel like did it a disservice. Not that books can't be written in 3rd person, but in my opinion, this book felt like it was first written in 1st person and they changed all the I's to the names of the characters, Grant and Helen. And it just doesn't work that way. That's just how it felt to me. Also, I 100% agree with the character arc situation. I just feel like there wasn't enough development for the both of them. They read like college age and they're like in their 30s, and it just didn't feel like, I don't know. It's almost like maybe they shouldn't be together in the first place, but it was enjoyable at times. So 3.5. Out of all of these books and the ones that I listened to on audiobook or read the ebook for, these 3 were part of my Tackling the TBR series. This was for book club. This was actually put on my TBR. Let me look at the list and see what else was on my TBR that I didn't get to. Okay, I'm watching my video back and Rock, Paper, Scissors was on my TBR as well. The next book, Meet Me at the Lake. I didn't read, but we'll get to that in a second. The next book that I put on my TBR was Darius the Great Is Not Okay. However, I very quickly took that off of my TBR. It's still on my physical TBR and it will get read at some point, but I very quickly took it off of my February TBR because I realized right after filming my video that Meet Me at the Lake would fit the prompt that I was going to read Darius the Great Is Not Okay for. So I was like, you know what? I don't even know if I'm gonna get to Meet Me at the Lake, and there's no way I'm gonna get to 2 books. And I was right. So I no longer included Darius the Great Is Not Okay on my monthly TBR, literally as soon as I finished filming that video. That is all of the books. So did I just only not get to 2 of them? That's not bad. Especially considering I have no idea what books I'm gonna pick up to begin with, like for my Tackling TBR, but also for book club, but also for just new releases or whatever's out on my radar. So on average, I've been reading, I mean, we're only 2 months in, okay? But I've been reading 5 to 6 books. I read 5 in January. How many did I read in? I read 7 books in February. That's exciting. Let's get into all of the books I want to read in March. Here I have a very, Here I have a very exciting stack, but there's also one more that needs to be added to this list. Actually, no. There's 2 more. One is probably going to be an audiobook if I can get my hands on it, but the other is not in my hands yet. And I'm gonna start with that book, Sunrise on the Reaping. 18 more days. 18 more days until Sunrise on the Reaping is in my hands. I pre-ordered this book. If you live under a rock, this is the next installment of the Hunger Games series, and hopefully the last. I might be the only person to say that, but this one was out of left field. I don't think people saw this coming. I didn't see this coming. If you have not read The Hunger Games, why? If you have, but you don't know what this book is about, this is about Haymitch's games. And if you know, you know. Anybody who has read The Hunger Games has been waiting for Haymitch's games. Like, they're referenced in the books, and when they just, I don't even know what to say, honestly. I am so excited to get details on Haymitch's games because that's all I've ever wanted. And yeah, I'm so excited. This book also comes out 2 days after my birthday, so it'll feel like a birthday gift to myself, even though I ordered it a while ago. but I'm so excited. This book has to be read in March. I might be putting off other books in this stack for the purpose of reading this book, but it has to be done. February, I honestly had such a great reading month, and I feel like March is shaping up to be that way as well. I'm just so excited. I was going to get into this stack of books, but let me just mention the other book that I don't own physically. That book is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. This book has been on my radar for a long time, actually, since it came out. I don't know why, I'm just kind of gravitating towards it, and it's something that I just really want to read. I don't even really know what it's about. This is a book that's part of a duology. The duology is also called The Carls. So this is The Carls #1. This was released in 2018. It is his debut novel, but it says, Hank Green spins a sweeping cinematic tale about a young woman who becomes an overnight celebrity before realizing she's part of something bigger and stranger than anyone could have possibly imagined. The Carls just appeared. Coming home from work at 3 a.m., 23-year-old April May stumbles across the giant sculpture. Delighted by its appearance and craftsmanship, like a 10-foot-tall transformer wearing a suit of samurai armor, April and her friend Andy make a video with it, which Andy uploads to YouTube. The next day, April wakes up to a viral video and a new life. News quickly spreads that there are Carls in dozens of cities around the world, everywhere from Beijing to Buenos Aires, and April, as their first documentarian, finds herself at the center of an intense international media spotlight. I don't know why I'm really gravitated towards this book, but I am. The reason why I want to read this month specifically is because March, for the Buzzword Reading Challenge, the word is thing, or like ending in thing, like everything, nothing, and obviously in the title, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. It has the title. I could not find a book on my shelves specifically, or that I just want to read, that is double dipping, because the cover has to have books on the cover. I am counting a book that I read in February for it. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna do that. The book that I read in February for March's cover prompt, I'm gonna include, and then the book that I was supposed to read for February's cover prompt, I'm gonna read in March. So it all adds up in my head. So anyways, that's the reason why I really want to read that book in March, to fit that prompt. Okay, now let's get into the books that I physically own. I have to start with this. I'm gonna read Iron Flame in March. If I can resist temptation, I will read Iron Flame and Onyx Storm in March. But I do agree with those of you out there who are saying, Ellie, you're in over your head. I agree, especially when I have all these other books that I want to read. You're right. I should not be putting both books. Also, I kind of want to save Onyx Storm. Like, I just want to have the world for a little bit longer until the next book comes out. But at the same time, which I will talk about in a second with the Natural series, I don't want to start series and then just never finish them, especially when I want to continue them, because I feel like it hinders my experience with the series overall. So I'm doing my best to not do that and to actually just continue series when I pick them up. So I'm so excited to read Iron Flame. You have no idea. The next book in this stack is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I have wanted to read this forever, and it's an anticipated 5-star read for me. I really feel like I know that I'm gonna rate this to 5 stars. Like, it just has all the elements that I just think I'm gonna give a 5-star. First of all, I love really any genre of book that has an element of magical realism. And so I'm really excited to read this. But the reason why this is on my March TBR is, one, because I've just really wanted to read it, and March is my birthday month. I just want to like spoil myself and read all the books that I just cannot wait for and make March a really good reading month for me. But also, I've kind of brought up to my friends in book club that I really want to read this as the book club book, because I don't think anyone in book club has read this. So I'm really hoping that no one in book club has read it. I know for a fact 3 of them haven't. I'm not sure about one other person, but I do think it's a book that's up everyone's alley. Like, it's a romance, and it will also be my first Ashley Poston book, which I think will just get me into all the books. Okay, the next two books kind of go hand in hand. I have the next two books in the Natural series, All In and Bad Blood. I know for a fact I'm going to read All In March. I'm actually going to be reading this as my next book, and I'll probably start it tonight. I'm so excited to read this, especially because I just finished Killer Instinct. 2 days ago, I just finished Killer Instinct, so I'm so excited to just continue and see what happens. But because of that, I have one more book. I should just finish the series, right? So I'm hoping that in March I finish both All In and Bad Blood. I do know that there is a novella called 12 that my best friend Ryan just finished, and I'm interested to see what that's about as well. I know it's pretty short, so I don't own that one, and I probably won't read it in March because I've got a lot on my plate, as you can see, but I know I will eventually read it. I'm nervous to read All In because I think it's everybody's favorite. Out of all of my friends on Goodreads that have read All In is their favorite out of the series, but it's also the most heartbreaking, and I want to know why. I'm scared. I'm glad to just have some more Jennifer Lynn Barnes because I love her writing, at least in this series. Wait! I have 12 in my book. I have the novella. No wonder this copy is so huge. No wonder. This is like the same size. I was always wondering, why is Bad Blood so much thicker? But it has the novella print. I read that on the back. It says, includes the bonus Naturals novella 12 in print for the first time. Yay! So I can just go straight into reading this if I wanted to. Anyways, these two books are on my March TBR. I'm so excited. If you've read the Natural series, comment down below. Let's be friends. Okay, the last book on my March TBR is a book that was on my February TBR. This is Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. This book will probably be read immediately after I read All In, just because this was supposed to be read in February. It's okay that I'm reading it in March. But yeah, I actually also really want to read this. I read Every Summer After by Carly Fortune and I really loved it. I talked a lot about this, I think, in my last month's TBR, so I don't want to just repeat myself, but this is something I really want to get to. So I'm not just like putting it back on my shelves to never be read. I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read this, okay? Anyways, it feels like March is gonna shape up to be an amazing reading month. February was pretty good. February was pretty good, but March I feel like is just shaping up to be even better, and I'm so excited. It's only been 2 months, but if I'm comparing this year to last year reading wise, I am doing spectacular. I had a really, really good January in 2024 reading wise, and then February I read like one book. But look at me, we're keeping up with the momentum. I've read 12 books so far this year. What is that, out of 32? Is that a third of the way already? It's like over a third of the way, right? And we're only 2 months in. And one of those months is the shortest month of the year. So I'm excited to see what March has in store, reading wise, but also reading video wise. I'm going on a couple little getaways, and it'll be exciting to just see what I'm reading at that time. And yeah, just enjoying life. I don't know. I'm so excited for this reading month. I can't stress it enough. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. If you like me, then subscribe. What are you doing if you haven't? And yeah, like I said, comment down below if you've read any of these books or if you're planning on reading these books. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.